Hello, good afternoon. This week I wanted to do a reading vlog of sorts. I feel like I've been in a little bit of a reading slump recently. I'm just not reading as much as I used to. Every book that I pick up, I'm not liking it, or I'm not excited to read the books that I say I'm going to read. I'm letting all of my loans expire at the library. So I wanted to bring you along with me to try and get out of that and to find a book that I really like, that I'm excited to talk about, that I want to share. So I thought that that was something that we could do together. So I normally read about 10 books a month, I would say, like on average. And that's between audiobooks, my Kindle, and my physical copies. I think that audiobooks are real books. Okay, guys, I feel pretty passionately about that one. My goal for this year was to read 100 books, which is really excessive, okay? Like, I'll be the first to admit that that is not necessary. And I'm finding myself more than usual finishing books or like forcing myself to finish books that I don't, like I'm not in love with. My average monthly rating is like a 3, and that's not acceptable. I know that there's books out there that I will rate a 5, that will be a 5-star for me, that I know I won't be able to get off my mind, and that, you know, I feel very passionately about, but it's just a matter of like finding my way to that exact book. I've gotten better about picking out books as opposed to just searching like lit fic or like romance book or like, you know, something on social media, that I'll take recommendations from like actual booksellers, or, you know, go to a bookstore and sorry, my cats are back there, or go to a bookstore and like gravitate more in person towards something that I see as appealing. And sometimes, yeah, that's because I like the cover. But I have added all of those books, like the things that I really want to read, to my to read list on Storygraph. Storygraph is by far the superior book tracking and reviewing app. So much better than Goodreads. I will say that until the day that I die, that if you're still a Goodreads user in the year of our God, 2024, you need to switch over to Storygraph, okay? Also, before I start this, I want to kind of draw out my book rating. Oh, hi, baby. My book rating scale. So 1 would be hate passionately, like have things to say about it that I hate. 2 is I did not like it, and there's kind of things that like rub me the wrong way, but honestly most of that is like I just don't care. Like I'm apathetic towards it. It was like a nothing book for me. Whatever. 3 is it was good, it's fine, like it fulfilled its purpose. I might recommend it to someone if it was like a specific theme or something that I know that they would be interested in. 4 is I liked it. I definitely liked it. I had a good time reading it. I enjoyed this book. I would describe it as, you know, a good book. And then 5 is like, this book is life-changing for me. I will talk about this book at any chance that I get. I'll recommend it to people. I cried multiple times, depending on the purpose of the book, or, you know, the storyline or something like that. But like, love. I love this book. When I woke up this morning, I knew that I wanted to do this sort of video, this sort of vlog, because I had about 8 million notifications from Libby, the library app, about how many holds that I had that had expired because like I hadn't checked them out, or how many things were about to be renewed that I hadn't even started on, which, you know, makes me feel guilty because I know that people are waiting in line for these books and I'm sitting here wasting it. So like, makes me feel like a bad person. And reading, like, that's my whole life. Like, outside of literally work and Paul and my babies, the cats, hanging out with my friends, like, reading is everything to me. So I just feel like I'm slacking. So we're gonna do this together. I think the first book that I'm gonna pick out this week is The Villain Edit, and that is by Lori DeVore. I think that's how you say her name. It's a contemporary romance novel, which sometimes are hit or miss, but this book caught my interest. That's like the audiobook art. It is on Spotify Premium. Described as Emily Henry meets Fleabag and The Bachelor, an irresistibly sharp and sexy dramedy about a cynical romance novelist who goes on a reality show to revive her career, only to discover that while she may have just met the love of her life, the producers have turned her into the show's villain. Piquing my interest, nice, good. I'm still coming off that Love Island high, so the reality TV is gonna hit for me, I think. But I'll keep y'all updated as I finish this book. I'm a little bit in with the audiobook, and then I'll just carry you along, explain my ratings. I'll try not to spoil anything, but I'm pretty bad at not spoiling. Okay, to be totally fair, I am a little bit of the way in, like I said, with the villain edit. And by that I mean I'm on chapter 19. Our main character, hey, don't know her name, so that's not a great sign already. What is her name? Jacqueline. She is on this reality show, which is it's like a very thinly veiled bachelor. And she does not like the main guy, like, at all. And instead she likes the producer, which is her previous one-night stand before, like, she knew that they were going to be working together. The characters don't have any chemistry. I think that she has more chemistry with Marcus, which is like the bachelor guy, than she does with the real love interest, Henry, which is the producer. I always get Marcus and Henry's names mixed up, and I don't know why. They do not sound similar. They don't start with like the same name, but every time one of their names are said, I'm like, wait, is that the bachelor guy or is that the producer guy? Like, I genuinely could not tell you, and I have to like do a brain pause and really think about it. And that's exhausting for my brain. Oh, especially with the like contemporary romance. I don't want to be exhausted. I don't want to think. I want it to be easy for me. Also, the whole thing is about how she's being made out to be a villain, right? Like how she's not actually a bad person and that everyone is just painting her that way and that kind of stuff. I think that's where the Fleabag comparison comes in. Like, think about in Fleabag when she's like, oh, I think we might be really bad feminists. I think that that's what the author was going after, was like that kind of vibe about being like being dirty and weird and like off-putting and a bad feminist, and like that's the appeal of this unlikable female main character, which we all know I ride for an unlikable female main character. But I feel like this one, girl, you might actually be the villain. You ever considered that you're not getting the villain edit? Like, maybe you actually are a bad person. She's mean to the other girls on the set. She's mean to the like production assistants that are like 20 years old trying to do their jobs. Sorry, Jumpy is so bad during the day. I think that she is manipulating everyone to try and get her way. I think the main guy, the love interest, like her producer, had written that like, Jack thinks that she's special, make her feel that way, or something like that. And that was like the biggest read of her life. She's unlikable to me, but that's not saying that she won't have some sort of redemption arc. So give me a couple chapters. Off topic, one more thing. The inconsistent Southern accent, and this may just be the audiobook narrator, is gonna pee me oh. Especially because it'll be like y'all just thrown in there randomly, or she'll say things with like abbreviating the ing to just in. How could I not see this coming? You know, like stuff like that. Because she's supposed to be from Charleston, South Carolina, so she's like, oh, they have to have, you know, a strong Southern accent. And it's like, it just feels so forced. Okay, that's all. Every time they mention how tiny and skinny and frail and beautiful and gaunt the main character is, an angel loses their wings. These people, Jack and Henry, would not last 1 week in the real world outside of this book. And that is my number one gripe, I think, I'm realizing with contemporary romance, is these people are not soulmates. Especially when there's always the fucking third act breakup where it's like, oh, they miscommunicate, they can't be together because da-da-da-da-da. You know, there's always some barrier. And they always, like, especially the miscommunication. I cannot stand the miscommunication. That is why your relationship would not work in the real world. And then all I can think about for the rest of the book, after, like, the third act breakup happens or whatever, is, okay, so don't be together. Okay, so I hate you guys. Also, sorry, I'm obviously not really enjoying myself. Also, Henry is taking Jack out on this like little date in between filming, because she is doing the hometown date and they have like 1 day break or whatever where they can do whatever. So Henry takes her out and he takes her like paddle boarding and outdoors and everything. And she's like, oh, why did you take me on this date? Why did you choose these activities? And he references something that she had said during a date with the bachelor guy, Marcus, and how she liked being outside and it made her feel like a person again and not just like a person on the show. And so like that's why he took her on these dates. And the way that she is reacting is like, oh my God, he listens to me. Like, my world is rocked forever. This is the most incredible man that's ever existed. And it's like, that's the bare minimum though. Like, he listened to something that you said and then like followed through with that. And like, you're gagging over it. Plus, there are so many other times in the book where like she has expressed wanting him to do a certain thing or, you know, needing clarity from him about their relationship. And then he's just like, either blatantly ignored her or blamed like not being able to do their relationship or commit to their relationship because of his job, which like it makes sense in this sense because he's a producer, or he like stops her talking or like stops her stressing by like having sex with her. I don't like him. I'm not a fan. I think that she is obsessing over him because she can't have him. And it's like taboo for the main character to, you know, of this show to be sleeping with the producer and like, that's so thrilling and exciting. And I think that that's the only reason why she's so hung up on him. Because I think at the end of the day, she might still be a self-centered person who just needs excitement and needs her life to feel like it is thrilling and special and she has something to say and something to talk about. And I think that that's why she might be self-sabotaging with this producer. Because their relationship is boring. It sucks. I don't like him. Okay, y'all, it is about 6:41 now. I finished the villain edit around the same time that I finished work. I've sat with it for a little bit. She simmered, and I'm going with a 3.25. It got that 2.5 because I feel like near the end, Henry was able to kind of explain some things to Jack, our female main character, talking about how he acted and why he acted that way and how previous seasons have made him that way. It felt like bullshit to me, but sometimes, I mean, that's just contemporary romance for you. So I think I would recommend it to my friends that really like reality TV or something like that, but it just wasn't my vibe. I'm happy that I finished it, but I am happy to move on to the next thing. So I think my next book is going to be Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I love Melissa Broder passionately, okay? One of my top reads so far of this year was The Pisces by her. It's a lot of magical realism. It's weird, freaky, horny, but I think Melissa Broder does the weird girl, freaky, off-putting kind of idea really, really well in a way that I think a lot of other people try so hard to get that aesthetic. I mean, you'll see like books for weird girls on TikTok and like all that shit, but she actually executes it in a way that I think does not feel transparent. Death Valley is kind of along the same lines of The Pisces. It's young narrator, young woman. Her life is falling apart around her. Her husband is chronically ill, and then her dad is dying and depressed. And to escape all of this, as she's in the midst of writing her novel, she goes to the California desert. So think like Joshua Tree. And she spends some time alone, and I think she has like weird, strange, spiritual, magical experiences with a cacti and just the desert in general. So that's gonna be the next one. I think I'm gonna take a little book break, maybe clean my apartment, shower, eat some dinner, something like that. And then I will resume with the reading. Oh, also, I am so into The Secret Life of Mormon Wives right now. I'm on episode 4, 5, I think. I fell asleep to it last night. It is consuming my life. So if you see me in the next video or, you know, on Instagram or something like that with Utah curls, that is why. So I just need you to love and support me through that journey. Okay, it's about 10:45 and I'm halfway through Death Valley. I'm really liking it. The main character is still not named, but she is so funny. She's so charming, to me at least. A lot of it is like just her inner monologue. Like I said, she's having this spiritual experience in like the desert, trying to find herself and like dealing with all these stressors in her life, right? And there's this one scene where she climbs into this cactus in the desert and she sees her father as like a young child, and then again as a teenager, and then she also sees her husband as a young child, comparing them, you know, in their adolescence or in their youth to where they are now, with her husband with his chronic illness and her father dying. And there's this one scene where her husband as a baby is having an asthma attack, and she like comforts him and rocks him to sleep and all of this kind of stuff, and comparing that to caring for him in his adulthood and how it's so much easier to find empathy and compassion for him as a child versus now when he's an adult man and, you know, there's so much more happening in life and like all these stressors. And I don't know, it's just really interesting. And then going from like emotional scenes like that to her inner monologue of like which of the front desk people that she finds more physically appealing and like all that kind of stuff. So I'm really enjoying myself. The chapters are super short. They're like 3-4 pages, so it's easy to get through. I hate a long chapter, okay? Like if a chapter is 30 pages, I feel like just makes me not want to continue reading. Melissa Broder just never disappoints for me, ever. I have no idea where it's going though, like plot-wise. I don't know what's gonna happen, especially if I'm already halfway through and like not much has like happened technically, but that's okay. Like I love a character study book as well, so we'll update when I'm further along. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Excuse my shower hair also. Got out of the shower and immediately jumped into bed to read, so it's gonna look crazy, but that's okay. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with like how weird and funky it is, but like fun. So she's going through the desert looking for that cactus where she just saw her child version of her husband and her dad, right? She can't find the cactus, but she can find these like rocks that she was talking to earlier. Stick with me, okay? Stay with me here. She finds these rocks that she was talking to earlier, and she's talking to them about how she got into this fight with her husband because he wasn't responding to her in the way that she wanted, and then after the fight, like, he didn't respond to any of her texts. So then she finally gets a text from him, and he says, "Hey," he writes, "I dropped my phone in the toilet. Everything's fine. Love you. Tell me you're okay." I feel a flood of relief. Breathlessly, I bang out a series of heart emojis, but I stop before I hit send. Then I just stand there, my thumb hovering over the phone. "Why can't I send this?" I ask the rocks. "Because you love power," says the egg. That's a rock that's shaped like an egg, okay? Stick with me. "Because you love power," says the egg. "What?" "He scared you," says the gray rock. "He didn't mean to scare you, but he did. Now you feel angry that he scared you. You want to make him feel what you felt." "But I should send it." "Of course," says Gray. "Tell him where you are, tell him you're coming home, and then go home." "No," says Pink. "Let him wait." "I don't want to be punishing." "Come on," says the egg. "You love to punish." "I don't love to punish. I just find it difficult to surrender an opportunity to punish when I've been scared." Girl, that's so good. That's so good. Weird as, but like also just so good. Like talking about, you know, that instinct to want to like hurt people or like punish people when you feel hurt, and then just doing it how it's fear. Talking about how anger is a secondary emotion, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's fun. And the whole time, she's not supposed to be on drugs, okay? I feel like that's crucial for this. She is supposed to be sober during this whole event, so it's not like she, like, dropped acid or something and went into the desert and is having this experience. So good. So good. Okay, one more little snippet, and then I swear I'm actually going to bed. But this scene, she's talking about spirituality, okay? And I have read this page about 5 times now. But she says, "Over time, that desire for a knowable God gave way to a growing sense of resignation, that God was inherently unseen and untouchable and would remain that way. I accepted that God was beyond anything that I or anyone could define. I became more and more surrendered to that undefinability." When I talked about spirituality, I'd said things like, if I could conceptualize God with my human mind, then how great would God be? And there's no need for an answer because there's nothing missing. I liked how I sounded. I thought I had settled. Settled with the unsettled. I was spiritually smug. But I guess there is no spiritual endpoint, no final graduation, at least amongst the living. Every door can be a trap door, every bottom a trap bottom, and my professed peace with not knowing, my answer that no one has the answer, my arrival at a place of non-arrival were, like so many answers and arrivals, only provisional. You're joking. It's so different, like the way that I was talking about the villain edit, like before this, versus the way that I'm talking about this book, and like wanting to read snippets out loud and like highlight pages and like share my thoughts on it. You can feel the difference, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can just absolutely tell what it's like to be bogged down by the thought of finishing a book versus like being excited to get to the next page. So I'm riding that possible 5-star high right now, I think. Good afternoon, happy Wednesday. Welcome to my office. I am working right now, but I just finished Death Valley on my lunch break. It was perfect, beautiful, wonderful, everything that I thought it was gonna be. The writing was so simple in a way that made it easy to get through, easy to understand, but it was just like the most beautiful motifs about death and grief and pre-grief and all of that kind of stuff. The main plot point, okay, this is not a spoiler, is that she ends up getting lost in this desert, okay? She goes back to find her big psychedelic weird cactus and she can't find it. Now she's faced with her own death and the unlikely possibility that she's going to die before these people that she thought that she was going to be grieving her husband and her father in this desert, all alone, surrounded by these bunnies and lizards and vegetation and whatnot. So I rated it a 4.5, not quite a 5, because while I do think that it's something that I would buy the physical copy of and recommend to people, and I might be thinking about for a long time and like refer to the snippets and whatnot, I don't know if it was like life-changing for me. So I'm gonna sit with my rating for a little bit. Sometimes I like to sit with my rating before I go and leave a full review on Storygraph. So I'm gonna let it simmer. I'm gonna let it simmer. Right now it is sitting at number 1 so far of this week. That's just above the Villain Edit, so I guess it's not much, but it is my favorite so far. My next one on the list, I think is gonna be Yellowface. This is another one from the library. It's one of my Kindle books. I think it was like a New York Times instant bestseller. It's a Reese's Book Club pick, I'm pretty sure. And the description on this one is, what's the harm in a pseudonym? Best-selling sensation Juniper Song is not who she says she is. She didn't write the book she claims she wrote, and she is most certainly not Asian American. In this chilling and hilariously cutting novel from the #1 New York Times bestselling author R.F. Huang, in the vein of White Ivy and the Other Black Girl. I haven't read either of those books, but I'm sure they're great. The first paragraph in the description is, authors June Hayward and Athena Liu were supposed to be twin rising stars. Same year at Yale, same debut year in publishing. But Athena's a cross-genre literary darling, and June didn't even get a paperback release. Nobody wants stories about basic white girls, June thinks. So I think it's supposed to be funny from like what I've heard. Well, the top mood apparently is 67% dark. So maybe it's not, maybe it's dark humor. I don't know. It has a 4.05 rating on Storygraph. Storygraph reviews are much harsher than Goodreads or like Amazon reviews. I will say that, and that's why I trust them more, I think. Anyways, I'm gonna try and maybe finish this today, like especially if it's on my Kindle. I feel like I'll be able to read it quickly. I have about 2.5 hours left of work, and then this will be my main goal. I'll keep you updated on my thoughts, beginning, middle, end, little comments that I have. I have high hopes. Okay, I'm still working, but as one does, I took a little TikTok break, and I keep seeing clips of Drew Afalo's new book, her like memoir collection of essay kind of thing, all over TikTok. So I know it's on Spotify Premium, like included as an audiobook, and I want to do the audiobook because she's the one that reads it, and I feel like she's such a, you know, distinctive, recognizable voice. And so I think I might start that one as well. I have like about an hour left of work, and I know if I start this one and then like start reading Yellowface at the same time on my Kindle, like I'm gonna have 2 going at once. But I feel like it's fine because they're so like different and distinctive thematically, and you know, like different genres, so I feel like it's okay. The description for this book is the empowering, inspiring, patriarchy-smashing first book by podcast star Drew Afalo. Drew Afalo is best known as the internet's crusader for women and is at the head of a new generation of entertainment's rising stars. Loud is part manual, part manifesto, and part memoir. It makes it clear that behind her fearsome laugh is a mission and a life philosophy, a strategy for self-confidence from the inside out, and a pathway to once and for all remove men from the center of how women in femmes think about themselves. So it sounds really good. It's really on par with the other 2 like essay nonfiction books that I've read this month. So I feel like I'm keeping with a theme this month. This month is a bunch of, you know, memoir, essay, nonfiction, feminist literature. And last month, unfortunately, my nonfiction interest was about pregnancy and children. So, you know, I can be multifaceted. But yeah, I think I'm going to start that one as well. It sounds really good. And the TikToks are really convincing me, so sorry. Guys, are you mad at me? I didn't do any reading last night. I watched all of the episodes, well I still have the finale, but most of the episodes of The Secret Life of Mormon Wives, okay? I sat on the couch, and you know, once you start watching one episode, it just kept going, and then Paul sat down and watched with me, so that didn't help, and I didn't do any reading. Didn't accomplish it, didn't pick up my Kindle, didn't pick up a book. Once. Not every day can be a win, you know? So I did end up finishing the audiobook this morning of Drew Afalo's memoir essay accumulation, Loud, and it was really good. I mean, it's a feminist book about decentering men, and the chapters had to do with things like motherhood, body neutrality, and I just love her, and I think that that influences it, especially since she was reading it. Like, I just love her, and I love her point of view on things, and how it's okay to be angry and standing up for yourself and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know, I feel bad because I feel like I like don't have more to say that was like groundbreaking. It was just, sometimes it's nice just to listen to women that you agree with and you look up to talk. And I think that that's a lot of what that was, is, you know, I'm on the same page as her in the way that she views issues and trying to always look at things in an introspective, like nuanced worldview. So it was nice to hear her kind of put like my thoughts, my feelings and things into words on paper, or like reading them out loud to me. You know, it's just like a fun, good bonding experience. And it just kind of felt like we were hanging out and talking about things. And I'm giggling and I'm tearing up, especially during like the motherhood chapter. Yeah, I rated it a 4, mainly because I like her and I enjoyed listening to her read it and I want to support her. Those are my main feelings about it. I feel bad. I feel like I don't have like more review content on that one. But then I also am reading a little bit more of Yellowface. I'm on chapter 11 and that is like almost halfway through, I think. It's so funny. I am also filled with an immense amount of dread because it's coming from June's point of view, right? And she's like pretending she took her friend's work and is passing it off as her own. And she's like really playing up to understanding the Asian American worldview and like where the history of their people came from when it comes to this story. I don't want to say too much, so like I'm treading lightly. But she is very obviously a white woman. So then she goes and she speaks at these Asian American associations and whatnot, and they're like looking to her as like a guiding light in the community. And it's like, well, she isn't, right? Like that is a white woman. And like she talks about like how it was her right to share this story and write this story because she researched it and she feels passionately about it, and not allowing her to write it is like a form of censorship and all of this other kind of stuff where you're kind of like inside, you're like cringing for her because you know like saying those things and like feeling that way and expressing that like is gonna come back to bite her in the ass so hard, and you know her downfall is coming. And you don't particularly like her, so like you want to see her downfall, but it still kind of feels like as the reader it's happening to you, and like it stresses me the fuck out. I like am struggling every time she says something where I'm like, oh no, like don't say that, don't like pretend to be something you're not, especially since June is her name, and I think Juniper is her real name or like her full name. But the name that she put on this book is Juniper Song. And Song is her middle name. But it's like it's very obvious that she's playing up this name as a way that like people that don't know what she looks like assume that she is Asian American. And she's trying to play it off like, oh no, that's just my name, which it is. But it's also like, but you know what you're doing. Like at what point are things unethical versus ethical? And when is the line and the boundary crossed, and at what point can like liberal buzzword speak like help play that off, you know what I mean? Because she's very much using those tactics of like what I think of like Twitter fight tactics of being like, well actually I'm the progressive and like good person. While it is fun to read and I'm happy it is not happening to me, it still feels like I'm sitting there and like my insides are caving in because I know something so bad is about to happen. And that since she's our main character, she's our first person point of view, I'm gonna have to endure her inner thoughts and monologue during these sections, even when she's like clearly in the wrong, how she's gonna explain her way out of it. And I feel like I just got to the point of the book, since I'm halfway through, I just got to the point where like shit's about to go down. Like shit is about to hit the fan and it's gonna be real bad. I'm pausing for a moment so I can finish work. Obviously like having the 9 to 5 is really fucking up this schedule, but it's fine. I think I'm definitely going to finish it today because I have no more Secret Life of Mormon Wives, okay? So I have no excuse. Good evening. It is that time of night where I'm sitting down with my Kindle to read and Paul is playing his game. So we are parallel playing, and it is the best thing that we do almost every single day. I am 46% of the way through Yellowface. I have my little adult beverage here, this beautiful couch with my babies, and so I'm really gonna try to sit here and finish the rest of this book by tonight. So fingers crossed. Speaking of fingers, I did my little nails. Say wow. All I have was a blue color, which I get is like the totally wrong color to do for the season. But I haven't done my own nails, or just my nails have gotten done in general, in a long time. Say, wow. Athena, the girl that died, that she like stole the book from, is a terrible, horrible, horrific person. I'm on chapter 16, about to start chapter 16. Everyone is awful. Kind of rocking with it, kind of loving it, because I know it's, you know, like satire and whatnot. Like, you're not supposed to like anybody. It reminds me of that movie on Hulu that came out in like 2022, Not Okay, with Zoe Dutch, I think, about the girl that was pretending to be part of a terrorist attack, I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly. It reminds me a lot of those vibes, where it's like you hate everyone and you know everything that they're doing is wrong, but also since it's from their point of view, you're like, oh, like, please, like, somehow save yourself from this awkward interaction, save yourself from like the Twitter torment and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm loving to hate her, you know what I mean? But also loving to hate Athena. Good evening, happy Friday. I finished Yellowface today. I rated it a 4.5, I think. I love R.F. Kuang. I think that's like my main takeaway from this book, is I need to read more of her stuff. I know her first book was The Poppy War, which I've heard great things about, but now I'm like even more convinced that I need to read it. It was such a critique of like publishing and the industry in general, which is really insightful for me because, of course, you know, I work in publishing and whatnot. One of the main issues that kind of, you know, accumulated in the book was how the editors and the people in the team from the publishing company handled the whole situation, and how that inevitably led to the downfall as well. So like, it's not just the author, it's also the whole team of editors, marketers, like everybody that sees the process of a book go from an idea to somebody's hands. There's a scene in chapter 19 that I really resonated with, as our main character, who, again, is not a good person. Nobody's a good person in this book. But she's talking about how when she was in high school and she was still a writer at that point, and how she was so inspired and everything felt so easy, and then it was as soon as she entered the actual industry that like everything went to shit. She's at her childhood home, like talking to her mom, and she says, God, I miss my high school days when I could flip my notebook open to an empty page and see possibility instead of frustration. When I took real pleasure in stringing words and sentences together just to see how they sounded. When writing was an act of sheer imagination, of taking myself somewhere else, of creating something that was only for me. I miss writing before I met Athena Liu. Would enter professional publishing, and suddenly writing is a matter of professional jealousies, obscure marketing budgets, and advances that don't measure up to those of your peers. Editors go in and mess around with your words, your vision. Marketing and publicity make you distill hundreds of pages of careful, nuanced reflection into cute, tweet-sized talking points. Readers inflict their own expectations, not just on the story, but on your politics, your philosophy, your stance on all things ethical. You, not your writing, become the product. Your looks, your wit, your quippy flashbacks, and factional alignments with online beefs that no one in the real world gives a shit about. And once you're writing for the market, it doesn't matter what stories are burning inside you, it matters what audiences want to see, and no one cares about the inner musings of a plain, straight white girl from Philly. They want the new and exotic, the diverse. And if I want to stay afloat, that's what I have to give them. So she basically believes that she has no other option, right, than to pretend that she is an Asian American woman, or I don't know. I guess she wasn't even pretending, but like, kind of, like, wasn't she? Needless to say, I really enjoyed myself reading it the whole way through. I think R.F. Kuang has a lot of insightful commentary, especially on the publishing industry from multiple sides of it. And I just love a book that, you know, makes you think, and especially since this one was kind of related to my work and my life. I loved it. I had a really good time. I can't wait to read more from her. Happy Sunday, happy first day of fall. To celebrate, I decided to actually pick up one of the books that I own. So this is cult classic. This one I think is a romance of sorts, and it's like spooky, so that's perfect for first day of fall. The description is: one night in New York City's Chinatown, Lola is at a reunion dinner with former colleagues when she leaves to buy a pack of cigarettes. On her way back, she runs into an ex-boyfriend, and then another and another. Nothing is quite what it seems as the city becomes awash with ghosts of heartbreaks past. And I think like her old boss is supposed to be involved in some way, her best friend is supposed to be involved in some way, so it's like fun, spooky, mystery, romance, whatever. It feels perfect for today. So I'm gonna sit here with my heated blanket and read on my Sunday. I'm just at the beginning, but sometimes when you first pick up like a physical copy of paperback, I find it really hard to like get into the flow of reading at first, if that makes any sense. Like you start reading the words on the page, and I feel like for a while as I start reading, I'm having to read everything like twice over to really ingest the meaning as much. I don't know if that makes like any sense, but I feel like that's what makes it so hard to like pick up a book and immediately start getting sucked into it. You know what I mean? Like there's a scene where she's about to, like our main character Lola is about to leave this reunion company dinner thing, and she's going to buy a pack of cigarettes, and she's like walking down the streets of Chinatown, and she's passing this bodega, and she says this was a high-class bodega, the kind with enough energy bars to set the mind to calculating how long the body could last if trapped inside. And it was one of those where I was like, what? Body trapped inside? How long lasts? I read it like the fourth time, and I figure out that she's trying to say like how long that she could live if she lived inside this bodega. But I was like, is that not a weird way to phrase the sentence? Am I dumb? Am I stupid? Can I not read anymore? I take one day off reading, and I'm like, have I lost it? Have I lost my touch? It's 30-page chapters. I'm on chapter 4 and page 100. I have absolutely no idea what's happening. The like cult part just got introduced, you know, because cult classic. And I have no idea who any of the characters are, where the setting is. She's supposed to be in like an old synagogue, but like it's a garden. Like I just feel like I'm constantly being confused, and I'm here for the plot twist and the turns and all of that, but like again, like I said earlier, I feel like I'm being like left behind by the writing. I'm exactly halfway through. Say hi, Jumpy. I'm exactly halfway through, and I'm really, really liking it. Obviously, you can tell I just like bracketed these entire sections where she's doing like a monologue about the exes that you'll have in your life and your wants and needs and desires and how they can contradict and whatnot. So I wrote some notes for myself right here about like why I'm liking it, my thoughts on it. I said I'm seeing a lot of myself in the main character, for better or for worse, especially in the way that she can't let go of her past experiences, especially romantic ones. And this is not because she wants that person back or like she wants to be the person that she was in that old relationship. It's more like a ghost or like a shadow that haunts her, where it's like, you know, everything that happens to you in the past, right, like builds you into the person that you are. And she's just so stuck on that concept that like it's hard for her to even live in the present as the person she is now without thinking about who made her that way. Also, the whole cult that she is like supposed to be a part of is somehow orchestrating all of these run-ins with her exes, like on the street and in her day-to-day life, and like maybe not even orchestrating the run-ins with her ex, but also run-ins with other key crucial people that will like affect her timeline and like her story. I think that they're orchestrating these run-ins with her exes so that she can get closure. So like this rumination on the past can like stop impacting her present, or the rumination will help her like make a decision. When I'm taking notes about like a book that I like or something and something that I want to talk about, it is like the most incoherent note that you can think of. Like it just does not make sense at all. But when I was writing it down, it was just like, okay, from my thoughts to my fingers, and it does make sense. While we are in her thoughts, it is very much the kind of book where at least I can relate to the exact feeling she is talking about, or the journey of the exact train of thoughts she is having, but I've never known how to put it into words. I love when authors can do this. It feels so authentic and vulnerable and true. Another one of the reasons why I almost exclusively read female authors. Like, you know that feeling when you're reading a book or like watching a movie or a show and you're like, oh, I do that. Like, I think that way. Or like, that's an intrusive thought that I have all the time. And it's so nice to see somebody else, especially in a creative, beautiful way, be able to format those thoughts and those feelings in a way that you can see yourself in a character or see yourself in an experience, even if you haven't been there. And it's also just like, sometimes those thoughts are embarrassing or weird, or like you don't know how to share it with the people that you're closest with, because it's like, what if they don't get it? What if they've never had that feeling or that experience? And so it's so comforting to see somebody else like be able to do it, especially when it comes to things that are sensitive, like love and relationships and your exes and your past, and like how do you move on from something that's so sometimes earth-shattering, like with the experience that she's had in this book, that I just love. And I think that's another reason why, like, not just reading female authors, but, you know, female friendships is so important, because if, like, this female author has experienced that, and I, for some reason, you know, having no connection to this woman at all, I'm like, oh, that's me, then maybe it's more of not a universal female experience, but like at least a more widespread female experience. So when I have friendships, close friendships with other women, I can express these feelings and like they're even more likely to get it. You know what I mean? So it's just such a crucial part of my life, and I love seeing it in books. I just love reading so much, you guys. Okay, I'll check back in hopefully when I finish. Look at this baby. She is just sitting here listening to me talk. She looks so silly. Do you love the book? Are you loving the book, Jumpies? True that. Oh my god, so fucking cute, you're joking. I finished Cult Classic last night and I wanted to let her simmer before I did my final reviews. This was the weirdest romance book I think that I've ever read, and I mean that as an extreme compliment. It had a big plot twist at the end that I was not expecting at all, that honestly made the like denser earlier parts really worth it for me. There were certain sections, like I talked about earlier, where the writing was just in a way where like it wanted to be really complicated, and so I like had to read it multiple times before I really ingested what she was trying to say. Like, you know, when you read a paragraph and you're like, wait, I think I agree with like what they're talking about, and like this seems really profound, but I don't know why, and then so you like reread it over and over. That's kind of what I was getting to, but the end like made it all worth it for me. I totally get it. I'm standing behind her. I want to talk about it so bad. Obviously, like I want to tell you about the plot twist, but I can't because that would ruin the entire thing. But near the end, I was talking to Paul and I gave him like, hi Nico, good morning. I gave him like the spoiler full version. Sorry, I'm gonna get her down for a second. I gave him the spoiler full version and compared the main characters a lot to, you know, that like theory in Sex and the City, the taxi cab theory, where it's like you can have the perfect person, everything can be ideal, but if your taxi light is not on, like if you're not ready to settle down, commit, marriage, kids, like whatever it is, you won't end up with them. But if your taxi light's on, it's just the next person that gets in the cab. Like the next person that comes along after you personally decide you're ready is gonna be that person. And that's where I feel like our main character was with her fiance, and why she was dwelling so much on her past partnerships and her past relationships. Like she just could not escape it. One of the notes that I wrote in my little beautiful paragraph here is she spent so much time ruminating in the past and rehashing past experiences, relationships, crucial moments in her head and with her peers that it became all that she did. This becomes her identity and her present. So now these moments in her life will be solidified as times where she was only looking backward. So now in the future, what is she left with? Nothing new. And I mean, that's exactly what I said. If you spend so much time dwelling in the past and thinking about what could have been differently, how these people shaped you, then you are just evolving back into that, devolving, I guess, back into that person, and you don't allow your headspace to be filled with anything new that pushes you into your future. And so many times with my main character, like I literally wanted to take her by the shoulders and just like shake her and tell her like none of this shit matters anymore. Like you've outgrown these people, your relationship didn't work out, move on. Especially when, you know, she's about to be 40 and like her life is moving on without her brain. And I just loved it so much. It had so much wisdom that I think I'm going to carry into my like late 20s, early 30s. 4.75 for me, which I think is the highest one out of all the books that I read this week, which I'm so happy that I ended this on, you know, my reading slump journey. I ended it on this book. I feel like it was such a high note. There is nothing like reading a physical paper hardback book to get you out of slump, especially when I'm reading constantly on my Kindle. The feeling, like the physical feeling of it in my hand feels kind of monotonous after a while, and it makes all my books blend together, and I think it propels me into a slump sometimes. So physical copies, best way to go. Anyways, I think that wraps up about 5 books for this week, which is great numbers, not sustainable, like not normal, will not happen again. But I'm so happy that I brought you all on this journey with me. If anybody happens to read any of these books, please let me know. I love talking about books, discussing them, and giving more book recommendations. It's just like my favorite thing in the entire world. That is all that I have. I hope everyone had an amazing week and has an even better one next week. Bye bye!